November 25, 1941. The Mediterranean shimmered beneath a pale sun, calm and unsuspecting. Beneath that still surface, destiny prepared its strike. What could destroy a 31-ton battleship in under 5 minutes? How could Britain's naval pride vanish without warning? Aboard HMS Barham, sailors carried out their morning routines, unaware of the hunter lurking below. She was a fortress of steel, 8 15-inch guns and armor thick as faith. At 4:25 p.m., the ocean erupted. 3 torpedoes struck her port side, and in one apocalyptic instant, the sea turned to fire. For decades, the world only knew a fragment of what happened that day. The film of Barkham's death was locked away in military archives, sealed under orders of silence. Families received no answers, only cold telegrams wrapped in official wording. Missing in action, presumed lost. Nothing more. For nearly 50 years, the wreck of HMS Barham lay hidden beneath 800 feet of water, her steel tomb guarded by silence. Above her rested decades of secrecy, shame, and unanswered questions. Why did the government conceal the truth for so long? Was it to protect morale, or to bury a failure too great to admit? When divers finally found her remains in 1989, the truth surfaced like a ghost from the past. The wreck was twisted, torn, yet unmistakably proud, still bearing her name across the hull. After decades of darkness, the story of Barham was no longer hidden, it was reborn. Launched in 1914, HMS Barham was born from Britain's determination to rule the waves. She was a Queen Elizabeth-class battleship, one of the most advanced war machines of her era, a blend of elegance, steel, and destructive power. At over 31,000 tons, she towered above the sea like a floating citadel. 8 15-inch guns, each weighing nearly 100 tons, could hurl shells the size of small cars across 20 miles. Her armor belt was 13 inches thick, layers of steel meant to resist the fiercest enemy fire. Deep within her hull, 4 mighty turbines thundered, driving the ship to speeds of over 24 knots. She was more than a vessel. She was a symbol, the pride of a nation that had ruled the seas for centuries. Her silhouette, with tall bridge and triple turrets, became a fixture from Scapa Flow to Alexandria. At the Battle of Jutland in 1916, she faced the German High Seas Fleet head-on. Explosions lit the horizon, shells screamed overhead, and Barham stood firm, wounded but unbroken. Through the interwar years, she evolved, refitted with new fire control systems, thicker deck armor, and improved anti-aircraft defenses. Yet even as her guns grew stronger, the world was changing faster than steel could adapt. For a quarter of a century, she embodied British naval supremacy, an iron titan that had seen 2 world wars and countless storms. But by 1941, even titans would learn that power alone could not defy time, nor fate. The years between wars were supposed to be an age of peace. But peace has a way of deceiving giants. HMS Barham emerged from the First World War scarred but undefeated, her hull patched, her guns refined, her crew seasoned by fire. Yet by the late 1930s, the world she was built to dominate no longer existed. She underwent modernization at great cost. New rangefinders, fire control towers, thicker deck armor, and improved anti-aircraft guns now bristled along her decks. To those who saw her sail again, she looked as indomitable as ever, a fortress reborn. But war had evolved. No longer was victory decided by the thunder of battleships alone. From the clouds came a new predator, aircraft, striking from beyond the horizon. And beneath the waves, submarines had become the silent assassins of modern warfare. Barham's armor, designed to deflect shells and shrapnel, was nearly useless against torpedoes and bombs that ignored her defenses. Her size, once a symbol of might, had become a burden, a slow, magnificent target in an age that now demanded speed and stealth. Still, she carried herself with pride. Her decks gleamed, her engines roared. To her crew, Barham was more than iron. She was tradition, courage, and the spirit of the Royal Navy itself. When she left port, civilians lined the docks to wave her off, unaware they were watching a monument from another age. The sea had changed, but pride would not let her rest. HMS Barham steamed on, magnificent, mighty, but tragically out of time. By November 1941, HMS Barham had returned to the heart of battle once more. From her anchorage at Alexandria, Egypt, she joined the Mediterranean fleet under a pale, late autumn sun. To the men aboard, the mission felt routine, another patrol through familiar waters. But to the high command, this voyage was critical. Access supply convoys were rushing fuel and ammunition to Rommel's Africa Corps, and every drop that reached North Africa could change the war. The fleet's formation was tight and deliberate. Barham steamed beside her sisters Queen Elizabeth and Valiant, surrounded by a protective ring of destroyers: Hotspur, Jackal, Kipling, Havoc, Jervis, Kelvin, Nubian, and Kingston. Together, they moved like a single organism, each ship bound to the next by duty and discipline. Every man aboard knew the stakes. If even one enemy convoy broke through, thousands of Allied soldiers could die in the desert. So the fleet pressed westward, a steel phalanx slicing through the Mediterranean blue. By midday, the air was warm, the sea deceptively calm. On board, the rhythm of naval life resumed: gun drills, signal checks, and endless cups of tea. Yet beneath that calm surface, something sinister lurked. The men could not see it, but they felt it: the unease that comes before tragedy. U-boats were known to prowl these waters, and every ping from the sonar was a whisper of danger. As evening approached, the light began to fade, and the fleet tightened its formation. The sun sank into a horizon painted with crimson, a color the sea would soon wear again. They did not yet know it, but HMS Barham was sailing straight into her fate, and within 24 hours, the calm Mediterranean would become her grave. Beneath the calm surface of the Mediterranean, the Predator was already in place. The German submarine U-331, commanded by Hans Dietrich von Tiesenhausen, glided silently through the depths, a steel shadow hunting giants. At only 28 years old, von Tiesenhausen faced the Royal Navy's most formidable warships with nothing but patience, precision, and nerves of steel. Inside the cramped submarine, the air was thick with tension. Every sound mattered: the hum of motors, the creak of metal, the faint echo of propellers above. The crew whispered, moved carefully, and waited for their commander's signal. Above them, the British fleet advanced in perfect formation. Barham steamed at the center, majestic, unaware. The destroyers ahead formed a defensive screen, but no defense is flawless. The hunter had found his opening. The range closed: 500 meters, 400, 375. In the stillness, von Tiesenhausen could see sailors on Barham's deck, sunlight flashing on their helmets. The temptation to fire was overwhelming, but he waited. One last calculation, One final breath. Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, Fire 4. The command sliced through the silence. 4 torpedoes burst from their tubes, leaving white trails behind them. Messengers of death streaking toward Barnum's flank. Above, the battleship's lookouts never saw them coming. At 4:25 p.m., 3 explosions shattered the calm. The first tore through her machinery spaces. The second and third ripped into her magazine compartments. Barnum heaved violently, listing hard to port, steel shrieking as decks buckled. Inside U-31, the crew listened to the distant rumble, a sound that meant victory and horror intertwined. Von Tiesenhausen lowered the periscope, expression solemn. He had just slain a legend. In less than 5 minutes, the pride of the Royal Navy was gone. HMS Barham, that floating fortress of steel, had become a storm of fire and debris. The sea itself seemed to recoil as her 15-inch guns, magazines, and armor tore apart in one apocalyptic blast. Nearly 1,400 men were aboard when the torpedoes struck. Only moments separated order from chaos. As the ship rolled, ladders became cliffs, and corridors turned into traps of flame and rising water. Some fought to reach the open sea, others were swallowed before they could even shout. The explosion ripped Barham apart, hurling men and steel skyward in a single monstrous roar. Then, silence. Only the hiss of burning oil remained. 862 souls perished. The survivors floated among wreckage and fire, clinging to debris, their faces smeared with oil and ash. Rescue ships arrived, but the sea had already taken too much. News of the sinking never reached the public. For reasons of national security, the truth was buried. Families waited in silence, forbidden to speak, mourn, or ask. What the world did not see was the cost of war written in smoke across the Mediterranean sky. When the sea finally calmed, all that remained of HMS Barham was oil, wreckage, and silence. The official record called it an incident, but for hundreds of families, it was heartbreak without closure. For 2 long months, the British government forbade any public mention of the disaster. Letters marked top secret arrived at quiet homes, each one warning, do not tell, do not mourn in public, do not speak. Behind closed doors, grief spread like an unseen tide. 862 men had perished, but their story remained locked away until January 1942, when the truth was finally announced to the world. By then, the Mediterranean had long swallowed the evidence, and the survivors bore scars that words could never heal. In 1989, 48 years later, explorer divers found the wreck at a depth of 820 feet off the coast of Egypt. Resting upright in the sand, her hull torn open yet still recognizable, Barham had become a war grave. The great battleship, once a symbol of power, now stood as a monument to fragility, sacrifice, and truth. Her story is not just about loss, it's about remembrance. Even the strongest giants fall, but their courage endures beyond steel and time. History reminds us that even power and pride are fleeting, but truth and remembrance endure forever. HMS Barham teaches us that silence can wound as deeply as war itself, and that every story, no matter how tragic, deserves to be told. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor those who served by leaving a comment below. Share what their sacrifice means to you, and subscribe to our channel so together we can keep these forgotten voices alive beneath the waves.